All right, quick December recap. I don't know. Did anybody have like a definitive hit that they remember?
I didn't
I
have
was
anything.
sorry. Go ahead.
It's good. Go ahead. I didn't have anything too exciting.
I was gonna say the CEO shooting was
Oh, yeah.
it's pretty big. I had that one. Um, Other than that, cryptocurrency.
Was this your the CO shooting?
Yeah,
That's perfect. That's a banger. I feel like that was probably the biggest story besides the drones of the month.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
was glued to the TV on that one. So
And then one of these had the crypto stuff, which you called really well, and you drew like the peak happening and then like the dip down. And
yeah,
now the new theory was that the 100,000 was the cap. That was going to be like the new base, and it already dipped to 98. So that's leading to a bunch of theories. Here it is. Yeah, that was perfect.
Can I just say something really quick?
Yeah.
Kyle, I love that you had coins clinking and falling as symbolic, even though crypto isn't tangible. That's so cool. Just want to make that connection.
thank you. Yeah,
And Kyle had this, or not Kyle, Nina had impact in water, which I think Chaos, you had that as well, right?
An impact, but
We had something like that. I was saying I don't think that mine is going to happen. And if I were to way overfit my data, the way that I'm seeing the drone stuff, like when I go view it and like what I think it is I think it's Space Force or someone owns the tech, and it sure seems like they were looking over for dirty bombs. So this was like the thing where there's this 3-layer vector of the battlefield is like this, and there's this first layer here that was kind of like exactly where all the stuff was, and it's going over a bunch of buildings. And then there's this bomb thing, but it wasn't like a single bomb. If you remember, I was saying that it felt like spread out like multiple bombs all over the place. And that would have caused, I had it over in like this region or whatever and stuff to destroy a city. But yeah, if I were to like way overfit that, this would be conceptual that they were basically like looking for a dirty bomb or something like that. But I don't know. So
that's fun. The
yeah.
multi-vector thing for sure, though, that was definitely considerable.
And China just released a new aircraft, that triangle one. There's the leak footage of that, and that would be in this 3rd layer, I believe. Cool. Well, should we move to January 2020 news? Or 2025? Cool. Define where this stuff is. Cool. So the tasking was just describe the most impactful news event of January 2025. That will be feedback. And I think, David, you didn't take that TRM, but I got your session up here if you want to go through it.
Sure. Yeah, I don't remember you giving me, you gave me TRNs, but that was for other projects. I don't remember you giving me this one, unless you did.
I think only Nina used the TRN. The rest of us, I think, were just go hit something in January.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I feel like I'm almost like island side or peninsula side, but out on the open water, pretty much. But go ahead. Yeah, my first AOL was a distress call. I think maybe my second. But go ahead. So I get just basically my first little sketch is like a person calling out for help. Basically my whole site felt like kind of like there was some kind of issue on the water. These boats felt kind of small. Like I don't think they were like these big like naval vessels. It was almost like either a fishing boat or maybe like more of a leisure boat. But I felt like there was some kind of accident on the water, and they had to basically call for help, kind of a thing. So it was kind of my first big sketch. I've got like this. It almost felt like a sailboat to me, but near like this island or land, but kind of out on the water.
What's funny is that looks exactly like the Moana mountain. And like her boat.
Yeah.
Attached to that again. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So yeah, I had like maybe a small crew of like 3 or 4 people. I felt, but yeah, it's like they're, I've got this boat and then this seaside thing, kind of vibe.
It's almost like they get stranded somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. It's I don't know if they had like there was I thought I got a quick visual of like people like kind of hovering like around like a maybe a tipped over ship or a rock or something. But yeah, yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. Um, and I had like lifeboat. Lifeboat came in a lot. This now I know this is not what this is, but this reminds me of like a life, those life, like back in Baywatch where they carry those things, with them when that's what it reminds me of. But I know that's not what it is, but it's the whole, shell of it. So, um, so then I get into, it's like, I feel like there's another boat or something involved and they're maybe helping these people, somebody come over the bow type of thing.
These drawings are so great.
So yeah, I got that like left in a prone position. I don't know if they left the boat in a prone position, but go one up from that, would you? Or no, one down.
This
I'm
one,
sorry.
one down. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So this to me, sometimes I'll get a little thing, like a little. It almost feels like a photograph. You know what I mean? Like possibly if this does happen, there may be a picture in the news or something where there's like 3 crew members kind of huddled together. It reminds me of that, something like that. But these guys remind me of like sailors or fishermen or something like akin to that. So I got this like idea of like wreckage and older men. And it kind of cold, like they're out in the open water. I feel like they're like the cold may be a factor in this. But I felt like
So
there's a reasonable response time. I got that.
the one piece here, staged event.
Yeah,
That's an AOL.
that's
That's
where I put it.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, seaside embankment, open bow. Uh, yeah, I mean, I get a sense of compression, like maybe something got compressed. And I did sketch like what to me looked like air tanks or tanks, like you'd have in like divers or something. Um, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, yeah. But I felt like a sense of alertness, readiness.
When you do this, are you just doing the kinesthetic feel where you like quickly do that, or is it something that you're seeing and you're kind of drawing what you're seeing?
I try and keep the pen moving because the kinesthetics will drop out not just data, but sometimes I'll get a quick visual within my sketch. And it's like what it feels like is it's almost like I see movement inside the picture briefly, like a very quick, and to me, that's like a kinesthetic visual. Like I'll be sketching something and it like turns into a cartoon for a brief moment type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I did feel like this is historic in some way. Or it's maybe going to be historic. So I don't know why. But dynamic action, reasonable response time, and I got a mass transit system, and I don't know how that relates, but I felt like like the way it came across felt like a data bit, so I put it in intangible. But yeah, I got a feeling of panic and distress, from people.
How funny would it be if it's because they announce a redo of Gilligan's Island?
Yeah.
That's like the biggest movie of January 2025.
Finally, something good to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have an abandoned vessel. Yeah, I feel a historic nature to this. So it also felt like they were tugging. It almost felt like they were pulling maybe a smaller boat or something. Maybe they were towing it in. I don't know.
When there's the pieces that were split apart, it was reminding me like AOL Titanic or some sort of shipwreck underneath the ocean. And then this looks like there's something above that looking for it. So
yeah. And I got a
That's such
sense
a
of
great visual.
a signaling device, and that could be a radio, it could be a flare gun. I'm not sure, but it again. They feel like more like they don't feel like submarines or like big naval vessels, military vessels. It feels more commercial or even just leisure.
Euthanized. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I put that. It's right in between my intangibles, AOLs. I kind of, but I mean, because it's weird because I have like all these people up top, almost like they're holding something, but I don't know. I kept getting a sense of like falling back, like maybe somebody fell off or something. But yeah, that was pretty much the data. Then I tried to get a sense of at least hone it within a few days of when it's going to happen. Oh, this is my second. Or which one is this? Is that the end of it?
That's the end of it. I was looking for that
Oh.
timeline. And that looks like you did another session here.
Yeah,
or did it
same
just
thing.
restart? No, it's,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I
didn't
forgot I
restart.
did too. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I just got a sense of timing. Again, this was where I feel like a couple people are like crouching over a rock or a upside down boat or something. But I got waves, like a lot of big waves.
So your second session was targeting like the same news?
Same thing. Yeah. Just try and
Okay.
peel a little bit more off and get a few more glimpses. But I felt like I was near like a peninsula. You see, like I keep drawing that like boat with like the long thing in the front. Like I want to draw that like extended thing in the front. So I don't know.
I don't know why this all makes me feel of Alaska.
Yeah, I mean, it was cold. I've got people wearing like heavy clothes, so
I have a sense of feeling cold looking at these images.
yeah, cold was a factor. I felt like that was part of the emergency factor. Like they had to get to these people kind of quick, so they don't freeze to death or whatever.
Can I chime in really quick?
Yeah.
The landscape is incredibly flat throughout all of these images, and most of it is of, like a surface of water. And if this is a big newsworthy event, it makes me think that if it's on a small vessel like this or small vessels, what if it's someone important, who goes overboard, who's like a celebrity? And because otherwise, I wonder why it would make the news if this is a small boat,
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Good point.
Yeah, just like broken, struggle, like man overboard. I felt like I heard that, like that, that was, so
Oh,
it
you
does
said
feel like
Black Sea.
Yeah, AOL about Black Sea, which I do know they're having, they had a bunch of wrecks over there, but, related to other stuff.
It says floating debris.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I can't zoom in presentation mode. I'm
That's
sorry.
all right. That's all right.
I don't know where I am.
Yeah. Floating debris. Yeah. Yeah. Hull fracture. I got a sense of suction, like something was cracked and like, like water rushing in. A pulverizing effect. Hyperbolic, like a crack or a seam. Yeah, I had a whole fracture.
This seems like a significant sinking of a ship.
Yeah. And then I had a sense of like, it's almost like they were on a little, like they were going on some kind of a journey of some sort on the water, covering a measurable distance. I AOL'd like map making, so I don't know what they're doing out there, but must have to see if it plays out. Like fearing not surviving the cold. This is my signal there.
It'd be really interesting if there is a ship that goes down or they lose and they don't know it about people, and all this stuff technically isn't feedback, but it tells the story of them doing like a Gilligan's Island thing.
Oh my God.
That'd be
Well,
interesting.
it's weird when if it does, sometimes I hope this stuff really doesn't happen, because
Yeah.
when people die, You know what I mean? It really messes with your head. You know what I mean? It's like you knew this, like somebody's gonna die, and you just can't do anything about it. It just happens, you know.
Exactly.
But like I have lifeboats, a calamity. I AOL a whaling expedition, which
That sounds
to me-
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got a sense of travel, sinking. Yeah, isolated incident. Feels like an isolated incident.
This thing looks super interesting. Did you have more perceptions about that?
I don't know what it is. I mean, it feels like something likely on the boat, mechanical maybe. Maybe a lighthouse. I don't know.
Huh.
Okay, so yeah, I get a sense. Okay, so I got this guy. This guy reminds me of like a ship captain. Like he's sitting over like he's just like watching these big waves go by. And I feel like this is like the rescue side of it now. You know, like these are the guys trying to get to these guys. Like watching something go down in the water from a distance. Reactionary. Yeah, it feels like a tragedy or something.
Feels like there's consistency in the boats that are getting drawn too.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said. I mean, these feel like kind of relatively small, you know, sailboats, open bow type of boats.
With like that open area on the deck in the back,
yeah,
which kind of looks like a fishing boat, or as you said, a whaling
yeah.
boat.
And this could be the rescue boat for all I know. I don't know, but again, it's non-militaristic type boats to me. You know,
Is the Deadliest Catch still going?
I don't know.
Getting Deadliest Catch vibes, and that's up in Alaska, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I just got a sense of a bulkhead. And again, regaining consciousness, this dragging and pulling sensation. And again, prone position, like something was left in prone position. So maybe the ship was a boat was faced a certain wave and or maybe a wave knocked over the boat or something. Or maybe they had to get off the boat and they left the boat in prone position. But yeah.
Well, I see this at AOL nuclear submarine, like firing a weapon, but the weapon's in reverse.
Yeah. I think I was just, you know, I think I was just trying to ferret stuff out. There wasn't much more there. They have a survival suit, AOL search and rescue.
Definitely paints a picture.
Yeah. See if it happens, but and that guy kind of like beaten up, you know, kind of like sitting up on a rock.
Well, better luck for them. It's like Gilligan's Island reboot and not a Dorito.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
piss me off. It really would piss me off if there was a gig. That's what I'm getting. Oh man.
Or
Yeah,
I
that's
just
about
like
it, guys.
retconned you, and now you're
Yeah. Like I only do movies now. Movies
all
and
any of us
TV
can do.
shows. Yeah.
Oh
So,
man.
Yeah, there's just so
Here's
I
the
got
timeline.
yeah, somewhere between I felt between the 14th and or 13th and the 17th.
You know what's odd is I always get the 14th, 15th, and 16th. And last month I got like the 4th to the 5th or something overnight. So that would be one thing that would match the drones as well, is the overnight thing. But normally it's that same time range, dead center.
That's a little. I did it a little bit different. Usually I don't even. I mean, I haven't done predictions in a while, but I do it a bunch of different ways. But this way, I just tried to feel basically until I started hearing the sounds of the chaos. And once it started fading, I kind of just blocked it in that range. So I try and do that at the end because I feel like I'm deeper out of the target and then maybe I'll have better luck. So rather than, you know, in the beginning. But that's what I got, guys.
Great sessions. Unfortunately, I hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
I love your drawings.
Thank you.
You're the goat at drawing.
Yeah, they're really good.
Incredible.
Ava,
Thank you.
can I ask you a question about your session?
Mhm.
The image towards the top of the three people, sort of like a snapshot for like a newspaper, for example. You mentioned it might be that one, feedbackable. Did that feel any different for you than any of the other visuals that you got in that moment? Was there anything unique about it?
Yeah, I mean, like you could see, like like this guy. It's almost like I wanted to, like a sailboat where they, which you drive it with. I almost wanted to drive that in front of him. But I do so much remote viewing. I have a sense of not necessarily specifically what the data is, but what my subconscious is trying to show me because it's done it so many times before. This to me, there's just sometimes I'll do a sketch to where it's just like, okay, this is like a feedback picture sketch or something. I just kind of, it felt like that. Like there's going to be, like a photograph of the guys, before the trip or something, and it'll be similar to that. Would be my suspicion.
Cool.
It's going to come up if this happens. And my suspicion would be this would come up somewhere in the feedback.
Awesome. You want to move on to Kyle?
Sure.
Kyle, you're up.
Which one we got? Okay, the first one is what was it? Let me get my notes out. Oh yeah, it was a structure. It felt like we can go on to the next page. Let's go to the next page. There we go.
That's awesome.
It felt like mountains or like mountainside, hillside, but like a construction, like there's scaffold, like it was man-made structure inside of a natural structure. And like hot liquid fluid going down, like lava, lava, like a pit, a bunch of rods. The rods seemed important, like not so much like they were there like structurally, but like these rods, and I have it in the next picture. I think I detailed maybe the one after that. That one. Okay, so these rods, to me, it seemed like the news was all about this particular thing, the rods. That these rods, basically, the way they fold and twist is like they self-charge, and that the center is like positive and negatively charged. And so like the center is going back and forth while the other ones are like folding upon each other, like in cubes and rotating. It was really weird. And that these rods are like underground. I don't know if that's the reason for the man-made structure underground, but it seemed like it. And what had happened was like this object, kind of like a drone. It felt like a drone, flew into this mountain area and like set off like an explosion or like a disturbance. And so I don't know. I didn't get like anything like nuclear involved. Like it felt different. Like the reason for these rods are different, but like self-charging rods. I don't know. But yeah, so something flies into this mountain and it sets off this like disturbance and these rods. And yeah, there's a catastrophe.
This is very distinct. This is great.
And I don't know what I got that symbol down there that it felt like a yellow, like yield, not yield, but like a warning symbol. Like it felt very like a construction site. So kind of got feelings of like a dam, but not really. To me, it was more about all these rods, like they were stored underground
And natural, but engineered.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
And then
this is
something
awesome.
kind of happens and it sets off a catastrophe. So yeah, so that's all for that one.
Awesome.
And then
And
the next
second
one involved like a, kind of reminds me of Dave's session. Like it has this vessel. It's like the ship. Not necessarily military, but it felt like it was doing like experiments, like science experiments. So either like the ship was doing the experiments, or it's like engaging with like a laboratory underground. And I just kept getting these like visuals of like a laboratory, like it's dark with fluorescent lighting. And if you want to go down one, and like so there's these detectors, like, and the detectors like in the bow of the ship, or the front of the ship, like is there on purpose. It's to detect like gravitational waves maybe, but like very, very hard to detect things. And I felt like there was like so on the ship is like these antennas, like radio antennas that are there on purpose to help like maybe navigate these waves. But it's like something explodes, but it's on purpose. Like, so these waves, gravitational waves or something similar to that, like in these petri dishes, like the cleaner the explosion, cleaner the pattern will be. I guess that's kind of what is happening. It's like they're trying to get like clean energy, maybe. And it's like the cleaner the explosion, the more like detailed the pattern is, and not like just like messy. Does that make sense? It's like you'll get this like very distinct symmetrical pattern. So I feel like it's not necessarily like a bad thing. Like people might think this explosion is like due to war or something like that, but really it's just to set off this experiment. But I think they'd rather have people think it's war. Like I think it's secret.
This kind of overlaps with what we were just looking at with Nina's from last month with the explosion on water. In Chaos, you had that too. And then here you're talking about that, and Dave's had that, and it even had like the staged event thing. So it really seems like we need to watch the water this month.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like this like really secretive experiment or like energy detecting vessel. But yeah. So I think like there's gonna be this big breakthrough. Yeah. But I think people are gonna think it's like something bad or like a catastrophe, but it's not. So I don't know if we're ever gonna get the feedback on that, you know?
This is so similar. That's
Looks like an
Wow.
open bow too. Yeah, like specifically like not military. Like I remember thinking
Yeah.
like, you know, it's a
civilian.
different kind of a yeah. Well, yeah, I mean it's just, you know, it's just interesting. Like she's got that dish on there, it makes you wonder, you know, I was drawing that, I wanted to draw a sailboat. It makes you wonder if there's something else on top that was making me draw all that crap, you know?
Yeah, it's like there's something specific. I didn't know what it was, but to me it felt like an upside down, like a football goalpost. I don't know.
But you mentioned the sensors at the front of the bow.
Yeah.
I remember, you know, I kept wanting to draw this narrow tip. But yeah, it's interesting. Definitely.
Yeah,
Looks
exactly.
like
I
there's
feel
something
like
going on
there
there.
might be something overlapping there. It might be the same thing.
Could be.
Yeah.
Kyle, I noticed the word British on the left center part of that drawing. Can you speak to that?
I should put that as a AOL. It just something was like it's either a British ship or a British experiment or maybe in the water over there, but it seemed important. And I think the 0700, I think that was like a time. I think it was like, it was trying to tell me it was like in the morning, not like a ship number or anything, but I felt like it was more like a time.
This collides underwater thing, that could be the event. What happens? Something.
How did that 0700 come in? Was that like a clairaudience, or is that
Yeah.
or was that yeah. Sometimes I'll get you could like it's strange. It's like you're in the room for a minute and it's specific. It's usually my best data, a lot of it.
Yeah, it was like clear as day, you know?
Very cool.
Okay. Yep. So yeah, that's kind of I went over that stuff. So yeah, it's about this science experiment. So, and then my next one, I think I only did 3 this month. So let's go to the next one. And Yeah, so this one I feel like was like a parade or festival. So I kind of was telling myself when viewing the news this month, I wanted it to be more positive news. I wanted to pick up on more positive news. I kind of felt bad for like being super excited about that guy dying in the CEO. So like I didn't want more of that. There was some kind of like overlaying guilt, like watching it unfold last month, and because it matched my prediction, I felt vested in it. And so anyway, so this month I was like, I wanted to get feedback that was more positive in nature. So this seemed like a parade or like a festival. Let's go down one. So this actually felt like a what are those parade
Float?
like a float, I guess. So it seemed like there was this big umbrella and like some like art piece on top of it and like a platform. But it was moving. It was really big. It very much gave the vibes of like a Thanksgiving Day parade. Let's go to the
But in
next.
January.
Yeah.
But,
So
yeah.
maybe first of the year,
I like
or
it.
maybe like in another country they celebrate something at a different time. I'm not sure. But yeah, I was in a very big city. So what it seemed like what was important was this like technology on display. Like they were like wowing the audience. Like something comes out from this display, like in a 3D, like shoots out into the audience, and it just kind of gives this wow feeling. Like, and what shoots out was like, when I went to go draw it, it looked like flames, and I was like, please don't be fire. I wanted it to be fun. But it almost like looked like an emblem, like a branding, like the Chrysler, I think, or like, the Buick, like that, but like big and bold and red. So, and it reminded me of like a city street, like in New York, like in the corner, just really busy. Some people with some horns shouting. Let's go to the next one. And I don't really know what that was. I don't know if this was part of the display or something, flying, but it was like holographic. It just gave like, so this like the scene on display, it was like trying to meld like old timey culture with like new technology, like a Santa on a, like on a spaceship or something like that. Like I didn't get the clear visual, but what I was getting was they're trying to integrate some old time lore with like new age technology to kind of like get young people excited, maybe. I don't know. So yeah. And I kept getting AOL of like robot reindeers. It just like, it was trying to change like everything like that we know into like a digital and fun like space age story.
Well, I hope this one happens.
I hope so too.
Maybe not the water stuff, but this one can happen.
Yeah, it felt fun.
Awesome.
So, and that's it for me this
Nice.
month.
Nice work, Kyle.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope that it's good. Kudos too on going deep and actually finding something positive too, because that can't be easy. It's so rare anything's positive in the news anymore.
Yeah, and after I drew it, like I said, I went back and I was like describing it. I was like, it described it as flames going out into the crowd. I was like, I really hope there's not a fire somewhere. I really hope it's positive. So
It kind of just sounds like the holographic technology that they're putting out, with like cool 3D images and stuff.
yeah,
And maybe we'll see something like that in the news.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I was seeing. It was kind of like just really.
Isn't there a big New Year's Day parade somewhere? I don't know. Maybe New York, or I don't know. It sounds like something that would happen. I mean, it does
I
sound
don't
like
know.
something
I'll be
that's-
watching for it though.
Yeah.
It could also be one of those drone swarms where they have thousands of them in the air, all in the exact
Good idea.
position to like create a 3D image from it. Maybe.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
that would
Yeah.
be cool.
By the way, I love your drawings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, David, you might be at risk being the goat. So just be on watch.
It's great. It's great sessions.
Orion.
So I'm going to read from, oh God, this looks so horrible. I really need to incorporate visuals. So
No worry.
I'm going to read from the summary that I got from my transcript and then add in bits of narration from what I remember too, because it doesn't hit everything. But and interestingly, throughout this session, I'll say, so I've had a blending of not just the session, but other things that my subconscious is processing, and that comes and goes throughout the session. And I'll be sure to point that out because it's rather unrelated. All right, so the target's emotional impact was described as unpleasant, flat, and dull. It felt like the object was hot, like burning fuel. The target appeared as a circular metal plate on a square or rectangular metal base, possibly wet or rusty, and felt like a small part of a larger, intelligently designed structure. As I zoomed into this, I felt like I was on a lunar surface as a large square-shaped outdoor structure is perceived, and it resembled to me, it had lots of poles and arms on it. It felt like a lunar module or lunar buggy. The poles were everywhere on this thing. The structure is complex and layered, with some layers appearing to protrude, and a feeling of discomfort and invasion is experienced along with a physical sensation near my belly button. I want to pause here for a moment and explain that. That literally felt like if you're walking in the dark and all of a sudden you walk into the butt end of a 2x4, and it hit me right in my stomach. It was an actual physical sensation in my body. It was like I walked into this thing, what I was perceiving remotely. So initial perception of this as a data packet before zooming in was of potential energy. It felt like unburnt fuel, something that was just sitting in wait that could be tapped into and harnessed for some sort of energy. When I zoomed in on the data packet, it shifted to something like a multicolored powder. It became iridescent, like stardust. The experience then transitioned to a directed energy like flames from a rocket nozzle with a greenish powder, and I began to get visuals of some sort of a futuristic city. The city itself resembled, it had two definitive points on it, one higher and one slightly lower. I immediately AOL'd pyramids, but there was more to it than that. That was just part of the overall city. From there, zooming in, I started to get very intense and strong visuals, analysis of a mysterious structure. So I began to get flash visuals of a spherical or dome-shaped building that was dark and rigid in its architectural details. The description includes a square shape with horizontal layers resembling a Rubik's Cube. Again, I want to pause here for a moment and say directly to Kyle, this cube shape, yeah, you already know where I'm going with this. Yep, it was a square, but within the square were more squares. Now, given your information, I may have been seeing it from the butt end of it, flat up against it, kind of two-dimensionally, if you can visualize that. Mm-hmm. And the overall gesture of what it felt like when I zoomed in on it was, again, untapped energy, kind of like unburnt fuel, and it was highly energized and ready to go, but it wasn't moving. It wasn't providing energy. It was just potential energy. Yeah, numerous layers to it in
That's
square
what I
and
was gonna
shape.
say when I read the Rubik's Cube. That's exactly kind of what those rods were resembling. It was like rectangular but cubed and moving. Yeah.
And what's interesting is as I approached it, and I have this written here, as I approached it, note of an iridescent blue powdery color and the structure appearing to move away upon closer inspection. My experience was as I was displacing myself from sitting in this chair and moving closer to it with my consciousness, it repelled me, or it started to move away at the same pace as me. This is the first experience I've had remote viewing where I couldn't keep approaching a target. It was as if it moved away from me as I was moving towards it. So that was part one. There's 3 parts. So we're in part 2 now. This was a few days later. Part 2, data packet visualization, a silver and white structure. A data packet visualization began as a silver and white rectangle. Again, perhaps speaking to you, Kyle. The visualization evolves into a large curved structure with a silver and white surface. I then, at this time, AOL'd lunar surface. Structure suggests an engineered design and evokes a sense of space or extraterrestrial environment. It was all extremely intelligently designed, and there was a sense of, again, as I was approaching these things, it was as if they were harder to get to, and they moved further beyond this curved white and silver surface. There we are. Spider-like structure movement. This was interesting. My mind saw that elongated structure with all the poles trying to propel itself the way a spider would move. It was like these poles were clambering up and over the main structure and then down, and then repeating that same movement over and over and over again. Yeah, its movement is compared to a spider's locomotion, raising and lowering arms for propulsion. Internal movement commands were then given subconsciously without conscious thought. So I gave my SC the reins to drive without me issuing movement commands. And then I started getting these visual data packets of embers rising like from a campfire, possibly following a trail. I was seeing them coming up and over me. If you can imagine laying beside a campfire, looking up at a black sky, and there's just these embers rising. And I felt like what I was near was highly energetic. And this was the shift from whatever was potential energy into kinetic energy, and energy was being released from it. The formation of this energetic thing next to me, I felt was sort of shaped like a depression in the ground, or as a bucket shape, primarily dark with red and orange sections. And the red and orange coloration is reminiscent of leaves in shape. One more thing I want to touch on here that the breakdown doesn't give was the sensation of standing in front of embers that were falling. It was as if I was witnessing white phosphorus. It was like fireworks drizzling down and spewing out from this central thing that was square in shape. And it was just giving off these white embers that were beautiful to witness, but also extremely energetic. And they were very hot to the touch as well. Oh, here it is. Observation of an energetic event resembling a white phosphorus explosion, but without flames. There were no flames here. It gave a sensation like I was in outer space. It was very odd. The white then turned into numerous creamy yellow particles exhibiting smoke or chemical trails, but again, no flames. I began to have this overwhelming perception of acidity or bile, suggesting a mechanical rather than organic origin of the event. I could smell it. I could taste it in the air. There's a spiral tunnel that then begins in this journey. A ribbon-like object spirals outward, creating a tunnel or vortex shape. The tunnel's interior resembles a liquid threshold, which evoked feelings of fear. And the spiral completes a closed loop, forming some sort of a ring. At this time, things go off the rails. I begin to shift through portals. There's 3 reddish rectangular shapes. Again, perhaps Kyle, this speaks to what you were talking about. I'm not sure, but I began to go into each particular rectangular shape to understand them better. They resembled doorways to me, and were observed as being in a triangular formation. So one here in the foreground, and then 2 further back behind it. Entities emerge and recede from the doorways in a repeating boomerang-like pattern. Like these guys were like, hey, and then they pop back in, hey, pop back in, except for the leftmost one, which is the only one I had time to jump into. This leftmost one transformed into a white crystalline wormhole with opalescent edges, which is then traversed. And I went through that thing for a long time. Finally, I got bored with it. So I went through a description of the space, which is an interior space with industrial-style catwalks and metal grating, the kind that are used in industrial settings so workers don't slide when they're walking on it with their boots. In this space, I observed a red plastic case resembling equipment, transport containers, kind of like something you might see roadies moving around at a concert. There was a presence of metal tables and a being studied that was exhibiting fear. Possibly scientific in nature. An investigation into the intersection between entities reveals an absence of a discernible plan. The experience involves a transition to a white space reminiscent of remote viewing sessions that I've had in astral or reality-creating realms. This white space uniquely presents as both simultaneously a blend of black and white. To be clear, it was not gray. It was literally black with a layer overlaid with white as a layer. Two coexisting black and white forms resemble a yin-yang symbol, and this symbol, it was as if it was projected on a surface that I was witnessing. A wishbone-shaped golden light is observed with two arcing lines emanating from a single point. I focused on the left one and went into it, which brought me into a sort of golden tunnel filled with glowing golden threads resembling embers, or in hindsight now, it was more like bone marrow. The threads exhibit a gentle movement of light, transition to gray or black in shadowed areas. And I'm going to kind of jump ahead here. Within this space, so now we're under navigating the thought filament network. I just knew in this space that thinking about something created a worm-like connection to a cloud of energy related to that thought, which then manifested it. It was the process of creating reality within this structure. Due to things that I'm processing in my own life, I began to sort of go to other places with this, and this is where an overlay of other things begins. But I'm still trying to be on the signal line. I began going through the tube-like structure and found something like light folding and focusing on itself and then expanding outward. This culminated into a bright, expansive ball of light resembling the sun's radiation. In my mind, I had asked a question: if we are in a matrix, how do you escape the matrix? And I can summarize all this quite quickly. It's as if instead of being a ball of light, and I can still see it clear as day, it was like a satellite in space. Instead of focusing, folding the like solar plates in on itself and reflecting it inward, it's more like opening up like a flower and expanding outward and reflecting on all it is. And by doing so, you change from this narrow focused being, that turns into an embryo and then manifests its life while in the womb. So I'm going to kind of skip past that stuff because I strongly feel that it's just my own subconscious processing stuff in the midst of this session. Now, I will say
Right.
that, oh, sorry. Did
Can I
someone,
say something?
yeah.
The way you're describing it, I'm wondering if you're describing or were like, so to speak, inside of like the petri dish that I kept seeing. You keep describing something, but like from within, like if you were within the petri dish, and what I saw was outside of the petri dish. For some reason, it just really feels like that.
Sure. And what did the petri dish feel like to you? Did it feel like a space of like possible unmet, unmanifested things, or was it highly tangible for you? What was it like?
It just was just a clear representative of what was going on somewhere else. Like,
Okay.
like I said, the cleaner the explosion, like whatever was happening, kind of like fireworks or, whatever. It wasn't like fire.
Yeah.
Was to go through these detectors and then like to this petri dish that specifically was looking for certain patterns. And like, depending on what that was, would give you the different patterns or colors or ripples or whatever.
That's really interesting because part of this is what I felt like was just how a new soul, when it comes in, manifests the light that it has, and it travels through that golden bone marrow wishbone tube thing, and its thoughts in that space create possible timelines where it will then travel through and have a life. But it was all unfulfilled. It was just created by the being once it inhabited the embryo. So that's cool. So I'm almost done. Part 2 here, subconscious lunar projection. This comes back to tying more into data that other viewers saw. There was a symbolic yin-yang image of the black and the white that's projected onto a surface like a flashlight beam. I then go into that and a sensation of being on the moon, observing Earth, or it could have been another planet, I was then propelled towards a reddish mountainous structure. I want to pause here for a moment and say, when this occurred, I literally felt like I was standing on the lunar surface, and I was seeing a dotted, curved arc as a trajectory point from the lunar surface down to this other planet, possibly Earth. And as I followed that, it shot me into this mountain. And within the mountain, there was this cave-like structure that reminded me of the den from The Lion King. And once I was there, mysterious beings, there was only one, resembling an insect, specifically like a large mantis, which emerged from the cave slowly. It walked like an old man, and it wore a hat or had something on its head, or its head was shaped like the hat that the Pope wears. It also was wearing a robe. At this time, a second data packet floated in of its own accord, and it was shaped like a ladder or a DNA strand, and it contained something what felt like writing. Of course, I couldn't quite make it out. Give me one moment. Yeah, from there, I felt like I was moved to another space. It felt like Saturn, because for a moment I was passing through this rocky field of outside of its surface, and there were these green light blobs being ejected and interacting with the curved exterior of that planet. I felt an alteration of time and perception, which was very difficult to understand. It was almost like the visual screen that I was looking through went 90 degrees on its side, and I was trying to perceive through the edge of it. It was very difficult and very odd. Anyway, once I was on that space, there was a subterranean green passage, and it was strange because there was a connection between the Lion King type structure in the mountain on Earth and this kind of place on Saturn. They were simultaneous, and I began to go through a subterranean passage that was illuminated with this green light, and I could no longer tell if I was on Earth or on this other planet. They felt the same to me. Anyway, I entered this green-lit, square-shaped underground tunnel, and I decided to pause there because I was interrupted and had to move on to my final session. This final session began with a data packet resembling a metallic cylinder, possibly underground, an internal structure which had features of repeating shapes like fountains, and an extremely quiet atmosphere. There was something in this space that was perpetual and repetitive. It was symmetrical and intelligently designed. It was also low to the ground as I passed through it. And then finally, an external structure with two pyramid-like shapes is observed in a garden-like area. What's strange about this is that was all perceived within this underground green-lit tunnel space. It was as if it could expand somehow, like how things make sense in a dream. And this larger area within the underground space could be observed. And finally, I had an overload of visual data coming in. So this may be imagination because it was all very clear and it all had a intelligent linear progression. I think this was imagination, but a sequence of vivid images, including herbs, mushrooms, plants, cycled through my mind. The scene shifts to a dimly lit setting with the scent of spices and herbs and the image of someone writing on paper. I felt like I was like in medieval times, and then zoomed out of that quiet study area where somebody was writing and they were enjoying the smell of these herbs and foods. I was then witnessing someone doing laborious work in a muddy field with a wheelbarrow, followed by a nighttime thunderstorm. And that's it. Thanks, guys.
That was quite a journey. Some of it reminds me of thinking about CERN or like particle accelerators or stuff. They just released on FFG that Chief thing, looking into that with like the spinning vortex stuff. And anytime I get that, I think of time dilation and space things and stuff. So I kind of wonder if some of this between Kyle and your session about these things is like, is there some sort of thing like that? And then you got to go experience the weird stuff that's that's going on when these machines get activated?
It felt like I often go and I get bored quickly, so I often go into the space like beneath the space or beside the space or around it, and it's strange. It's of course non-verifiable, which sucks. But my brain loves to go to these places, and it feels just as real as when I get hits for actual tangible parts of the target. So I don't know what to say. I don't know if it's
It's a
real
lot
or
of
not.
fun.
This whole thing rings. If this does, if something along the lines happens, um, related to this, speculation on my part, but it does ring to me as something that's like happening, under the surface and maybe presented as something else. You know what I mean? Like if it does come out, this could be a whitewash situation. Like so
Uh,
we'll just have to be keeping an eye out for like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because if any of this is happening, this doesn't sound like something they'd be willing to share. You know
yeah.
how you get some of these some things that are happening just below the surface, and um, they may present it as something else, just to cover their tracks type of situation.
I could see
It's
that
interesting.
because the transition from the high strangeness part of the session to the tangible aspects was seamless. They followed uh, organically, throughout the session. But yeah, who knows?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Chaos. How you doing?
But good. Great. See what we got here. So mine is more the from all those different places we've gone. I wound up in a more I don't know what to say, like tabloid sort of story here. Seemed to be like one event, and then it just kind of formed up. I don't know what the best way to do this is. Should I just read a summary, or should I just kind of go through it real quick? And
Yeah, we can start with the summary and then pull out any specific data.
all right, I'll go through and pick through it. Okay. So that's page 5 there at the end. Or last one. The summary says, felt like a violent event at a Vegas-like penthouse. They're lovers and they have a strange relationship. It's a round-shaped room that is destroyed. It looks crazy inside, like all smashed up, and it's very expensive. It had O.J. Simpson vibes, but crazier. Lunatic. Analytic overlay of O.J. Simpson and Nicole. Just pretty bizarre story here. Go back to the first page. Let's pick through violent, tickle, sultry, Vegas, magnanimous, harlot, elusive, rotate, spinning, connection, revelry, contagious, acclimate, soiree. Next page, stage 2, there's analytic overlays of lunatic misfit, a pink elevator, rotate, collapse, see, zebra, diamonds, that kind of like aesthetic. Stage 3, this visual I had of a circle room was rounded like a penthouse. I had a really terrible drawing, so I'm not a very good drawer of pie. It's like up, and then at the top there's like the circle penthouse kind of thing. Grafting, physics or plastics and solids, solid nucleus, wipeout, gold digger, skeleton key, reverse dealings, love story, vacation, frugal, cheat, permission. So like they're like she's like cheating or something, but it's allowed. Kind of bizarre relationship. Clandestine, torn up, madhouse, distracted, bloody face and nose. And stage 4 there, you got a aesthetic impact of a disorderly, drunk, drugged, carnival, lights out, disarray, emotional impact of love lost, surprise, but in it together, soul bond, stricken. Some extra impressions of welcome, inviting, solace, supportive, regalia, foreign dancer, and willing. The next page, where the summary is stage 5 here, we got a woman, harlot. I tried to ask more about what is this. The word Jesse, circumstance, rotate, planetary adventure, delicate, naval, and doctor's office. And other main kind of impressions for that party. Aggressive, insolent, ferocious, captain, Kennedy, lunatic asylum, sporting event, pension, gold and sapphire encrusted. frictionless state, juice, unravel, horrify, and unlock. So it's all pretty clear, just awfully bizarre for a
Was
story.
was navel like the belly button navel or like ship's navel?
I feel like navel, like belly button, like
Okay.
Sounds like a P. Diddy party.
yeah,
Yeah.
it really does. Like some
Sounds
kind of,
like,
but it,
sounds like
If
but
you
it was only
remember
like
when
these people in the relationship though. It didn't seem like there were other people there. It was like some kind of just a smash up crazy thing that gets public. I guess I don't know.
it AOL's to me, like listen to the session, like a Hollywood couple that are real rambunctious, like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard type of situation or something.
Something
those
like
have
that. It
great
gets out of
details.
hand and goes public. So I got the tabloid version of the RV here.
The month I wasn't posting videos yet, but the month that the P. Diddy video in the hallway with like the elevators and stuff, I like perfectly had the elevators and I was like CCTV cam, this angle down, person in
remember
a
that.
black hoodie
Yeah.
standing there, yeah. And then coming up and like getting assaulted and stuff and making the news. And then that video dropped, I was like, yeah, I nailed it. But at the same time, you're like, I wish that didn't happen. I feel like this is probably one that, it could pop up in those tabloids for sure.
Could you imagine if you sent that to Diddy, Dave? Like, hey, see, I've got you sketched kicking that woman in the ribs, right?
Before it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I gotta say, so in looking at pink elevators, there's a few. So this might be feedbackable, so I want to put it here for posterity. The Aloft Hotel in downtown Louisville, Kentucky. This hotel has a pink elevator as part of the Ride the Pink Elevator campaign, which promotes breast cancer awareness. And then two other spots, one in Now, Berlin, spelled NHOW. This music hotel has a pink elevator. And finally, 618 Main Street in Ann Arbor, Michigan. This building has a pink elevator as part of the same above-mentioned campaign. So let's see if that's feedback, man.
It'll be interesting if they have the circular penthouse as well, or like some
Yes.
sort of circular building. That seems very evidential.
Yep.
All
When
pretty
you see-
distinct. When I was thinking the data just kind of flooded in. Like, I was like, what am I thinking here? What is wrong with me? And I don't know. I don't really watch celebrity stuff or anything. I don't really care. But it's the first impression, violent, pickle, corded, sultry, impressive, strange.
Yeah,
These are
so-
the things that on news, it'll pop up in news, but I don't think we would ever get something like this on a practice target or an operational target.
I've never had anything like this before. I've done thousands of targets.
Chaos, were these
Seeing
clear
the
audience?
surprise.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
I'll go
Chaos,
for it.
were these all clairaudient, or were you writing down words that felt, that you felt?
It's the way it works for me. Just the impressions I get come in words like that.
Gotcha.
It's not, there's not clear audience. It's, I don't know. It's just how I get the data.
Is it clear cognizance where it just is that sense of knowing pops in
Yeah,
your
it just
head?
becomes my field of awareness, and just these words just kind of pop up. I don't know. I had a large vocabulary as a kid. I used to read a lot of stuff, so it's never very visual. It's always more just
Nice.
how
I'm going to move on to Nina's. She's not here, but she always lets me present for her. So I'm just going to read her summary here, and then kind of we can go through her pages. She picked up on a hidden man-made structure high up in the mountains. Wow, that sounds so much like we were just talking about. An elderly male guarding the entrance and sensed the phase out of bounds for most people. The structure contained gold and a small amount of silver, picked up on excavating precious metals. This could be metaphorical data relating to the gold and silver market. I also saw a small group of busy-looking people wearing white coats in a sterile environment, doing something with their hands, holding metallic objects, and shining a light on something. That sounds like the experiments we were discussing. They also had their mouths covered, which could represent a surprising, shocking discovery for which they are being censored. So I guess half the story findings get out to the public. I also want to say dentists, but I think that is an AOL. Front-loaded. The end of month is importantly special, the 28th of January. And that looks so much like the underground that you had, Kyle,
Mm-hmm.
where you have a mountain here, and then it looks like there's some sort of thing underneath there, which she's saying there's gold and silver. Wow.
Yeah.
This is her page 2 structure, high up in the mountains, ascending. Yep, gold and black. There she's AOLing a pilgrimage. That looks like an entrance to a mountain. Like, doesn't that kind of look like an entrance with like some railroad tracks
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
or something?
Or a ladder.
Yeah, she says entrance. Something at the base, something interesting is at top. High up structure, difficult to get to, cave-like, metallic gold and silver. Male hunched over, something on their head, ascending and descending. Is it more than 100? Move 100 meters above and describe. She's seeing male robes. What, Orion? Were you seeing someone in robes?
Yeah, absolutely. He's in the cave.
And you
yeah.
had that whole cave stuff going on.
Yep.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and I also got a
Everyone's syncing
ladder.
up. Yeah. So she's seeing that entrance up there with this male in the robes, color brown. Looks like he is a guardian of the place, gold green. She's moving inside to describe white, sterile people in white coats. So that seems like the opposite, right? Which is like going to the spot out in the middle of nowhere, and then you come inside and it's like a secret experimental place or something. That's crazy. Busy, looking downward, doing something with their hands and their mouth covered like they're in shock. What are they doing? Experiments, shining a light on something, metallic, tools, thin, ridge, long, and sharp. And page 6, scraping, can't read that word, excavating, finding precious metals, hidden. What would she regret not recording if she ended the session now? Lasers, red, and ruby. Awesome. Any comments on Nina's work?
Pretty cool. The lasers and the ruby red are kind of interesting. Some kind of almost mining.
It seems like she synced up on with some other viewers, so there's some overlapping data that we have here.
Same with Kyle's session. There's some overlapping data about the metals inside of an underground area. Kyle, would you
Yeah.
speak to that?
And she drew that like what looked like railroad tracks or like a ladder, and I kept getting that too.
Yeah.
Reminded me of it a bit too. But you know, it's interesting times. Like again, it's all speculation on my part, but you know, with these drones and stuff, to me, it feels like we're kind of ramping up to something. So it'll be interesting to see if things start happening and the powers that be start putting these weird spins on these news events, like explosions or whatever, as far as what actually caused them. And so we'll really have to keep an eye out.
I just have to say really quick, I wonder if something will be discovered and then quickly it will have been destroyed. I'm just going to leave this here for posterity. You know, oh, we discovered something, but of course we can't verify it or bring it to the public because it exploded upon whatever. This
Or
feels
got
like
lost in a shipwreck.
yeah. This feels like untapped energy, like new technology, just to me. But
Anything else?
Well, since I did Gilligan's Island, I think I'm going to go work on building a radio out of coconuts, I guess.
I'll share mine super quick, and then I think we can wrap. I already posted my January 25 Snooze Fest. Probably the most interesting part is that I just did the EG on it during that. So I will link that here. If anybody else is posting their thing, I literally said don't watch. It's just a big winter storm. So I give the little rundown of what I was experiencing there. It's cool because the dimensions were like this, and then there was a big rotating thing around it. Now, when you get a hurricane, there's this homogeneity to all of this where the center feels like it's hollow, but there's this like wind that's going around. It wasn't like that. It was like there was this funnel. And if you go and you view a tornado, it felt more like a tornado, but it felt the size of a hurricane. So that kind of overlaps with the weird term bomb cyclone that was used on the West Coast and the East Coast. And yeah, you see it from above, and I just had it like this. which I'm really bad with geolocations at the moment, even though I trained a lot in doing that, but I kind of got this. And yeah, the significance is that there's just supposed to, surprise, it's going to be cold in January and there'll be a storm in the ocean. So who cares? That's why I was like, whatever. So I did a second one and I was like, let's make it a little bit more interesting. And this didn't turn out wild either, but it turned out weird. So describe the wildest public news event of January 2025 that will be feedback that I will find interesting and entertaining. And I got this, I guess I'll just read the summary real quick. The data suggests an event involving a tall vertical structure with an angle to it, reminiscent of iconic buildings like the Burj Khalifa or the Space Needle. It emphasized the height, this motion of dropping down from the top, accompanied with imagery of, this is the weird part, some foam-like or chemical spilling down the structure, which this is just like the weird stuff. So maybe I would find this interesting. The event appears to involve a mishap during a publicity stunt or a marketing effort, something that creates a lot of chaos. There's a sense of artificiality to this. So the first one was a natural event. This felt like there was some screw up or something. And yeah, there's this blue corporate association to it, a cool environment, the aesthetic impact of anticipation and disorder, kind of like watching a social train wreck happen and feeling bad for them. The geolocation, which once again, I've been bad with this. I got Vancouver, Canada, although I'm not really certain. And yeah, so the drawing I had for it was this, which kind of looks like a beaker or something. So it goes up, it's this blue color, and then it kind of went more vertical at the top. But I don't even know why. There's this weird foam-like substance on a massive scale coming out of the top of it, which is just, isn't that odd?
It's weird.
It's weird. So I asked ChatGPT to go like find me some buildings, and there's the Shard in London, which is probably like the closest to it. But I don't really know if that's just taking the data and making it fit to something, which isn't great. But yeah. So then I was looking into like, is there a fireworks show thing where on a building that they shoot stuff off and they have some like fire retardant that can come down? And it said that they have that, but I don't really know. So yeah. I think this is like 2 months in a row with weak stuff for me.
Yeah, what you got?
Yeah. Well, cool.
That was fun.
Yeah. How's everyone feeling?
I love this stuff.
I
I'm
love
excited
seeing all
for the news
the
again.
data match up with everybody. That's great.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see where there was overlap and where people were, kind of like hive minding it, and then where there were just completely separate stuff coming into. That was really interesting. I wonder if as a group, it can take time for people to sync up and all get like one main event. But then again, the tasking, if I'm not mistaken, it didn't exclude anything, right? It was like just a January event.
Yeah.
And there is that there is the intention in the event that it's like something that you can kind of pick and choose. So as Kyle did, something that is uplifting, that will make you happy. Me, I was super bored. So my subconscious in that weather event session was saying, this is going to be important to you. And the last time I got a hurricane, it was the same thing. It's like, you live on the East Coast now. This is what you got to worry about. This is coming down the pipes. I know that you don't care. So then like I redo it and I'm like, just show me something that I'll get a kick out of. Right. So I feel like when you do that, there's that. Nina did hers completely blind. So she just went to the targets page in the underground and took it and ran with it completely blind, had no idea what she was looking at. So that was interesting. I think the rest of us all probed knowing that we were doing it, which I would call like F4 on my front loading scale.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I do try when I go do stuff like this, I do kind of go in with the intention to try and sync up with someone. Meaning I try to go in with intention of like, okay, it doesn't have to necessarily be the most interesting thing to me, because I'd like to see the consensus data. But I've done like with Jimmy, he would always get something different, but it would always, a lot of times it would happen. But he had his own idea of what was interesting to him in the news, or whatever.
Sure.
But I'm just glad I saw some consensus. To me, it's more valuable, regardless of the story, but to see the consensus.
I find it interesting that so Nina did it blind. I did it blind. Kyle, were you blind to this?
Yeah.
No. Okay. So it's interesting that the blind viewers, I feel like I overlap the most with Nina's stuff. Now that could just be coincidence, but I wonder if there's anything to that in the future of kind of like merging up, blind versus unblind. But I don't know.
I think we'll start to find out in time. The more we do this, so it's nice to be able to do it regularly. It's a great experiment.
For sure.
I've been meaning to write a script that I can just have things on the stack and then put a due date and then sit down and say, give me a target, and then it'll randomly give you a target. But I guess like if you still haven't had news come up in this last week, then you're going to start thinking like this is news. Yeah.
It would be
even knowing it was it was news, like it, I don't know, it didn't seem to make a difference. Like those data just poured in, I wasn't conscious, I guess I was consciously aware, but I didn't feel like I was aware. Well, it was a news target. It just was a target, and then it just got it.
I've had a lot of really good hits with front-loaded news. Yeah. David, you were going to say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say it would be cool to sync up. Like I've tried that in the past to sync up with the group, precognitive news, because I think it would be extremely valuable. I mean, if for this application, it would be valuable because it's going to round it out the most, and it seems to be the other groups struggle with that too. Like they don't sync up. Sometimes they'll get some correlation, but they'll all go to what they think is interesting or whatever it seems like.
Yeah.
What if we all hit the TRN and like I'll set it for next month or something, but instead of it just saying the most important, it like includes something that you will all view the same thing, or it's basically like
I think
David
it's like
gets view the news and everybody else gets
I think it's like a
view the news that David got.
It's like a subconscious agreement. You know what I mean? Like to go in there and like, okay, we're all gonna do this target.
Right.
But how to control that though? Like maybe there's something that happens that it's not my strong suit in remote viewing, so I just don't want to remote view it. I know my subconscious is not going to interpret it really well, so I don't know. But that's my intention, is to go in and hopefully I've meshed with somebody else. That's what I'm going for.
I'm gonna add that now that we're doing it as a group, so I'll add that to like my own
Can't hurt.
personal thing for next month.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I
I'll do
love
that
that
too.
concept of each of us meeting up subconsciously through our subconscious and being, oh, hey, David. Hey, Dave. Hey, Chaos. Hey, Kyle. How's it going? Hey, what do you want to view? What do you, like,
What's most important this month collectively?
Yeah.
And then everybody kind of like, okay, let's do it.
Totally.
Have fun with it.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, for the invite,
Yeah.
man. Fun times.
Yeah.
We'll see what
Thank you.
happens.
Hopefully the platform works out. We're on Riverside FM right now, trying to see if we can get a better video quality and audio quality than Zoom, which is my enemy. So. Well, cool. I'm gonna stop the recording. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.